Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed yet again until December, but that's going to give me more time to work on an absolutely epic Cyberpunk theme build, and when it's done, it's going to be one of the fastest gaming computers in the world. Hey guys, Tiago here. So of course, Cyberpunk 2077 delayed again until December, but in the meantime, I'm working on a really awesome build. It's going to be sort of an all Cyberpunk build with some crazy colors and a lot of cool things going on. As you know, Cyberpunk is a highly anticipated game, and it's especially cool because when you translate it into an actual build, there are so many awesome like neon 80s like colors that go on in that game and in that sort of world that it becomes a lot of fun to actually develop a build around that game. And also, keeping with the futuristic theme, I'm going to make this one of the fastest gaming computers in the world. So I'm going to go through some of my component choices, what parts I'm going to use, as well as show you guys how it looks like now. Keep in mind, right now it's just sort of a test build, so everything's a little bit messy, nothing's really done yet. I'm sort of testing the hardware first to see exactly how I'm going to do everything, and in the end I want to make it a very clean build, and most importantly, one of the fastest gaming computers that you can build. So first, let's talk about the juicy stuff, and that's going to be the GPUs as well as the CPU. Of course, all of this is going to go in the Caselabs SMA8. If you guys have ever heard of Caselabs, it's an absolutely epic case company that went bankrupt a few years ago, but they make these massive cases that are very modular, extremely high build quality, and I'll talk about this case a little bit later on. But first, let's talk about the GPUs. What I'm going to be using here is going to be the EVGA for the Win 3 3090, and this is the Ultra version. Now, typically in a case like this, you would have sort of water blocks on your GPUs. In a previous version that I did in this case, of course, everything was water cooled. The GPUs were water cooled as well, but the 3090, since it's so new, there really aren't that many water blocks available for it yet, and especially this, the For the Win 3 Ultra. This already has an extremely beefy cooler. I love the way that the RGB looks on it. EVGA actually just announced sort of the one that already comes with the water block, but as you know, that one's going to be even harder to get most likely than these air-cooled GPUs. So for now, I'm actually pretty happy using it air-cooled, and I'm going to water-cool just the CPU, but keep in mind, as the build goes on, it's always transforming into something better. I'll eventually most likely put water blocks on these GPUs as well, but for now, I wanted to use them sort of in their stock configuration. So let's address a few issues. NVLink and SLI. Of course, the only system that it's going to work in now is going to be with the 3090. And keep in mind, for gaming, very few games support it. It really isn't worth sort of the money that you have to pay. But in my case, I'm doing this aesthetic build. I like to do benchmarks. And I'm also going to use both of these GPUs for rendering and workstation applications, something that they're extremely good at. So even though SLI really isn't all that great for gaming anymore, I am going to use this for a lot more things. Like I mentioned before with benchmarks, for example, I've been doing 3D Mark Port Royal. So far, I've been able to get my score sort of in the top 17 in the world, and that's just sort of using air cooling with a little bit of overclock, nothing too crazy. I'm sure if I keep pushing it, I do want to take it further, but I still think that's pretty cool, top 17 in the world. And that's the same competition if you guys have seen the hashtag ripjay with Jay's 2 cents as well as Paul's Hardware. They've been doing a competition sort of with SLI 3090s, trying to see who can top each other. Of course, by now they're using sort of very advanced overclocking with, liquid nitrogen and things of that nature. I'm not going to go that far, but it's cool to see it in the top 17 just with regular air cooling. And that's certainly one of the ways that I can sort of verify that this will be one of the fastest gaming PCs in the world, because if it can do these benchmarks at such a high level, it's also going to play games that support SLI, especially at the highest level you can possibly do. And a further note on these GPUs, they really perform very, very well. They're very quiet. I think the 3090 version of these, probably one of the best 3090s that you can get. The performance on it really is very stunning. These are definitely the best performing GPUs I have ever seen, and aesthetically these GPUs also look really awesome. I love the RGB implementation in them, and of course with such a big case like this Caselabs case, either one GPU that's going to be vertically or two GPUs and SLI to fill in the space. The reason why I didn't do a single vertical GPU is just because this motherboard I use as a workstation as well, and I do want to have access to it if I need to plug something in or take something out, and having a vertical GPU definitely makes it a lot more difficult to access the motherboard. And plus I wanted to try SLI, do benchmarks. I can always move the second GPU to a different system or sell it later on if it really proves to be kind of useless. But for now, these are the GPUs that I'm going to be using in the build. And of course, something else that will help the performance, the CPU that I'm using in this build is going to be none other than the AMD Ryzen 9 5950X. Now, this is an absolutely monster 16-core 32-thread processor, and for the first time, AMD has beaten Intel pretty handedly in the gaming department. That means that this processor is going to be able to, one, fulfill any type of gaming need that you have with SLI 3090s and really high gaming performance. But since this is a dual use system, meaning I'm also going to use it as a workstation, that 16-core CPU along with those GPUs are going to be able to do pretty much any workstation task that you throw at it pretty handedly. For the motherboard, I'm using the X570 MSI Godlike motherboard. Now, this is going to be one of the most fully featured motherboards that you can get. In fact, it's one of the very few ones that you can actually do SLI of 23090s like this. You're going to need enough spacing for a 4-slot NVLink bridge, or else the GPUs just are not going to work in SLI. This X570 Godlike is going to be one of the very few motherboards that can actually support this configuration, not to mention that it's chocked full of goodies. It has very high performance, VRMs are fantastic, memory overclocking performance is very, very good. Everything else on this motherboard is absolutely geared towards a high-end gaming system, and it's also geared towards great workstation use with multiple NVMe drive slots, as well as an assortment of features. And for the NVMe drives, I am using PCIe Generation 4 drives, such as the Gigabyte Aorus drive, as well as the Corsair MP drive. These are all going to be hyper fast NVMe drives, really nice to be able to transfer files in between drives, giving me really fast performance in gaming as well as workstation use. For the RAM, I'm still seeing if I want to go with faster RAM, like maybe something that's 4000 megahertz. For now, I am using 36 megahertz RAM. This is going to be the Trident Z RGB RAM, the Neo, that's a little bit better for these Ryzen processors. This one is about CL16, but I am considering stepping up to faster memory. As you guys know, Ryzen 5000, especially something like a 5950X, can certainly benefit from faster RAM that has really good timing. We're going to see if a RAM upgrade will give us even a little bit more performance in benchmarks. After all, this is an overkill system, so every little detail counts in order to make the whole a very fast gaming PC. So let's talk about some other aesthetic plans for this build. As you see here, originally this was a dual loop system. Of course, for now, I'm only going to water cool the CPU, so I'm going to close off that second GPU loop. Most likely, I'm going to get rid of these dual reservoirs, and I'm going to get just one, the EK Flat Reservoir. That way, I can cool just the CPU, and that's going to take up enough space to sort of fill in the gap there, and I don't need to put in these dual reservoirs, mostly because these GPUs will be air-cooled in the future when I put a water block on them, and I'll definitely do that in the future. I'll see if maybe I want to put like a dual flat reservoir or something like that so it looks really cool. Also very important to fill the space so you don't have like big gaps. And of course, I'm going to do custom bends and hardline tubing. Right now, I just have the soft tubes in here just because I wanted to take the CPU in and out. I was testing a few of the new Ryzen CPUs, but the 5950X is going to be sort of the permanent, at least for now, CPU for this build. So I'm going to keep that in there, do hardline tubing. And in terms of the coolant color, I'm still thinking if I'm going to keep with blue, maybe green. I know yellow does go really well with the Cyberpunk 2077 theme, so I'm not too sure yet what I'm going to do. In the past, I have had sort of the EK solid yellow in here. And for those GPUs, if you notice, each one has 3 8-pin connections. So that's a total of 6 8-pin connections. That means that I'm going to need some custom cables so this thing doesn't look like a mess. Now, I did think about getting some Cyberpunk themed colors, maybe something like, yellow or some type of neon color. But then I also thought maybe it might look nicer if I just get like a black or a carbon, maybe cables that are very industrial looking for a few reasons. First, it sort of makes it a little bit more understated and allows all the other different colors in the RGB to bring out that Cyberpunk theme while keeping that a nice industrial look. And it also makes it easier for me in the future when I change it to a non-Cyberpunk 2077 type of build. If I want to change the color around, having a neutral color like carbon or black makes it a lot easier. And of course, all this is going to be put into the legendary Caselabs SMA8-a Case. This case is so modular. I've done so many builds in it so far. You can really change the character and it still looks really awesome. It has this really imposing sort of industrial look to it. So I think a case like this is absolutely essential for a really awesome build. So I know that 3090s and SLI definitely overkill, and I'm definitely very lucky to be able to put this system together. And also remember, if you guys saw my video sort of from a few weeks ago, I did give away one of my very own RTX 3080s, so I definitely did try to give back to the community as well to sort of spread that RTX 3000 series joy. So for now, I'm definitely going to enjoy these SLI 3090 GPUs, and I hope you guys enjoy not only the performance but also the aesthetics, and I can't wait till everything is done since Cyberpunk 2077 comes out and I can reveal the full build to you guys.